everyone. In this lesson, we're going to be solving quadratic equations when factoring, but this time when a is greater than 1. So just like in the last two lessons, we have quadratic equations where we have an x squared, and we're trying to figure out the values of x that make the equation true. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, same as the last two lessons, is get our equation set equal to 0, which we have, and then you check for your different types of factoring. So you first look for a GCF of your terms, and 15, 4, and negative 4 don't have a GCF, so I can't factor out a GCF. Okay. Is it a binomial or a trinomial? If it's a binomial, I would do difference of two squares. If it's a trinomial, I would have to do my factor sum table. If it's a trinomial, okay, since a is greater than 1, I'm going to use that divide and slide method. So first, I'm going to slide my 15 times my negative 4 to get negative 60. So I'm trying to find factors of negative 60 that have a sum of 4. Okay, so if you remember this from last unit, I'm listing my factor pairs of negative 60. You could do negative 1 times 60. You could do negative 2 times 30. But neither of these add up to 4. Then you would try a couple more, you get to negative 6 times 10. And when I do add those, you get positive 4. So these are the two numbers that I'm going to be dealing with. So I go to my double bubble, okay, and I have my first binomial would say x minus 6, right? I take this number and put it here, and the other number 10, I'll put x plus 10 as my other double bubble. When a is 1, this is your final answer because x times x would give you that first term. But if you check that first term of the trinomial we're trying to factor, x times x does not give me 15x squared. So this is where I have the divide step. So I slide, and now I divide. I take that a and I divide both of these numbers by whatever number you have here, that a value. So divide by 15. Okay. So if this is divisible, you're going to go ahead and divide. So go to Desmos or whatever calculator you're using. And if you put that in, 6 is not divisible by 15, you're going to get a decimal. So convert that decimal to a fraction and you should get 2/5. If this is not a whole number, we then want to take the denominator and bottoms up, put it over here next to the x. So the first binomial will be 5x minus 2. So the top number stays, the bottom number slides over here in front of the x. Okay, so that's my first binomial. My second binomial, I try to divide 10 divided by 15, see if I get a whole number. And you do not, you would get a decimal, so convert that to a fraction, you get 2/3. Okay, since it's not a whole number, I'm going to take this denominator and put it over here. So the second binomial would be 3x plus 2. Okay, so what I have here are two binomials multiplied together to set equal to 0. So just like the last two lessons, you are going to take each factor and set it equal to 0. So I'll take this factor. I'm going to move over here just so I have room. 5x minus 2. And set that equal to 0. So I took this and put it here. And I'll take this binomial, 3x plus 2, and set it equal to 0. You don't need the parentheses, so I'll just cross those off. Okay, I'm going to solve each of these equations for x, and they're both two-step equations. So my first equation, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I'll get 5x equals 0 plus 2 is 2. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 5, and I get a fraction, so I'm going to leave this as 2/5 as one of my solutions. Okay, just like all the other quadratic equations that we've solved, there's usually a second solution, so I'm going to solve this equation for x. I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. I get 3x equals negative 2, and I'll divide both sides by 3. Okay, negative 2 is not divisible by 3, so I'm just going to write it as a fraction, negative 2/3. Okay, so I have two solutions to example 1, 2/5 and negative 2/3. Number 2 is very similar, so I'm going to skip down to number 3 because the equation's not set equal to 0. So before I start factoring, I want to get this to say equals 0. Okay, hopefully you remember from the previous lessons that you would add 3 to both sides, and I would have 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 on the left, and then equals 0 on the right. So now I can factor that left-hand side. Always check for GCF first, but since there isn't one, I'm going to do slide, divide, and bottoms up. So first I'm going to slide my 2 times 3, and I'll get 6. So I'm looking for factors of 6 with a sum of this middle number here, which is 5. Okay, there's only 2 factor pairs of 6, 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. So which of those pairs add up to 5? Hopefully you said 2 times 3. Up 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. So that is my perfect pair. I'm going to set up my double bubble. So this number goes here, this number goes here, and these are both x's. Okay, since they're both positive numbers, these are both plus signs. Okay, so now remember, x times x does not give me 2x squared, so I have to take this a value and divide by that a value. Okay, so let me do my division. 2 divided by 2 is divisible. I get 1. So this binomial becomes x plus 1. And then this binomial, if you do 3 divided by 2, you're going to get a decimal. So I'm going to leave it as the fraction 3 over 2. Okay, we don't like fractions, so we're going to bottoms up, take this number and put it over here. So this becomes 2x plus 3. And I'll bring down this factor, x plus 1. Okay. So now I'm going to take both of these factors and set them equal to 0. I have x plus 1 equals 0, and then I have 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. For this one, I will do minus 1 on both sides, and I get x is equal to negative 1. And then for this one, I'll do minus 3. I have 2x equals negative 3. Divide both sides by 2, and I get another fraction. So I'll put my answer over here. X equals negative 3 over 2. So I have 2 solutions to this equation. X equals negative 1 and x equals negative 3 over 2. Okay. So at this point, let's pause the video, try example 2, and then come back to check your work. Here is your work for example 2. Okay. I did 2 times 6 and got 12. I found my factor pair was 1 and 12. I divided both by 2. This was a fraction, so I slid my 2 over, and this was divisible, so it's x plus 6. When you solve your 2 equations, you get x equals negative 1/2 and x equals negative 6. Okay. So try the homework questions and let us know if you have any questions.